to the Let's Talk Crypto podcast, where we discuss the latest Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset news.
Hey everybody, hope you're all well. This is episode 19 of Let's Talk Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Wes Carlson. The date is the 28th of July, 2019, and this was originally recorded on Friday, the 26th of July, 2019. I have a really great episode for you this week. It is the first chapter of a series of interviews. I've given it the title Crypto Market Wizards, inspired by the great trading book Market Wizards by Jack D Schwager. I have begun interviewing some of the traders in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space. Some of them may be more familiar than others, but they all share a common passion and skill for trading. I keep things informal and lighthearted, but do try and get some insight into how they got started and what they think makes a successful trader. I find it extremely insightful, and I hope you do too. To get us started, I have Eric Krown. For those of you not familiar with Eric, he's a professional trader who has traded on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange Arca and of the Chicago Board of Exchange, CBOE, as a market maker in equity options, and been mentored by some of the best traders in the world. He has since left that world behind and now trades Bitcoin and creates content full time. That's enough from me. Let's talk to the man himself. Let's get going. Hey, how's it, Krown? Welcome to Let's Talk Crypto podcast. What an absolute honor to have you on.
Hey, it's good to be here with you, Wes, man.
I know how much, thanks, man. I know how much you've got going on at the moment, and I must say I really appreciate it. So tell me, you're back in Chicago, home territory. How are you adjusting? You happy to be back?
Yeah, man. It was nice to be away from America for a while, but there's also some things that I actually do realize that I actually like about America being back now. You can get anything that you want basically instantaneously. Kind of miss that, yeah. But it's nice having bases in both places, man. I can see myself living here long term. I can see myself living, in one of the Nordic countries long term. It's all about the balance, really.
Okay. No, I can't imagine living in a place where I can get things instantaneously. I've always lived in a developing country or a third world country. And when we order something off Amazon, it takes like 2 weeks to get to us minimum. And that's Jesus. Yeah. So you have to adjust your time preference. It's kind of like a handbrake on spending too much money. So in that way, it's good.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. So I'd probably go for broke if, my first week if I lived in the US.
Oh, it's very deadly, man. It's very deadly. That one-click buying from Amazon, just genius, absolutely genius what they're doing.
Yeah, I know. I've seen your new battle station on your YouTube videos. Are you all done and set up now?
No, man. The thing is, I keep on going on Amazon. I actually just ordered a new computer monitor after one of the guys talking in the program chat.
Yeah, I saw that. Look, anyway, I'm excited to have you on, even though we talk nearly daily via the Discord, the program and I was actually looking through the Cave Discord, your videos, and then my emails to see when I actually joined the program section of it. And I can actually track it back to about sort of July-ish 2018, somewhere around there. I think I first discovered the channel around maybe May, June of 2018, somewhere around there, when you still had the couch and you still had all the other traders sitting on the couch behind
you. Oh, what a throwback! Yeah, man.
I'm sure a lot of them don't even know about that. But anyway, we'll save that for later. Yeah, I mean, how much has changed since then in the space of like what, just a year? Bitcoin. Now we're in what appears to be a bull market.
It's a 180, man. And for anyone who's listening, Wes and I have known each other, as he said, for a long time, man. This is the first time we've actually spoken on voice, so it's actually pretty damn cool for me too. When Wes first joined it, and I mean basically just a year ago is when I started it, somewhere in like mid-March, then started picking up a little bit in April of 2018. It was pretty damn small, man. We'd have like 20 people in the live streams. People would just ask endless questions on shit coins. It was kind of fun though, man, because it really felt like a super tight knit community. Everyone knew each other. Everyone knew which fucking shit coin that they wanted to be in. So it was cool to kind of start it like that because I think it really built like a strong base of a community. And then, as things kind of progressed more and more over the next few months, people, it kind of just tracks the same sort of person. And we were able to build, some similar, just some similar like the whole way through, which is what I really love about it. And Bitcoin over the time, it was going through a pretty intense bear market, man. I mean, that was an intense period of price action during September to January of this past year. I mean, especially when, those days where almost nothing would happen, it would be a very specific type of intensity, because, you'd have to interpret this whole game completely differently, that basically a humongous move was about to happen, but we're all just kind of sitting on our faces waiting for, full on entries and whatnot. So that whole time period was so damn intense, man. I really haven't experienced too many like that in my trading career. And then after that, then was kind of like the glory times for the past 5-6 months, where Bitcoin was just going straight up. Everyone gets happy once again, and it's the places, the place kind of turned around. Right, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, up in the flow of the market, man. It really teaches you a lot about your own thinking processes. I mean, just going through that period, you like me probably remember just the differences in mentality during just even like half a year ago, when we were kind of hanging out and stuck at the low 3,000 level. Just completely different feeling, right?
Yeah, completely different. I mean, just going back to 2018, a lot of the people that were experiencing that market had never experienced a bear market before.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, every time there was a meme posted on crypto Twitter or something that could give them a little shed of hope that we were going back to all-time highs, everybody was jumping straight onto that train.
Oh yeah,
It was quite
really
intense.
Yeah, that was desperation for a while. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at you now, though. Over 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's insane. I mean, I honestly don't know how you find the time to create the quality of content that you do at the rate you do, whilst being a successful trader. It's absolutely incredible. Are you starting to find that it affecting your trading?
Yeah, so I was actually the last couple of months. So actually, if you've noticed, I've probably taken a little bit of back from just being in the community like the whole day through. Kind of have a little bit more me time, so I can focus on that. It's also like you want to have a little bit of balance, right? Because when you're, I was just finding myself just answering questions in private messages and DMs like all day, instead of actually focusing on new ideas. So then the content for everyone else would get stale. And then I realized, if we're going to do this for the better of the whole, I need to kind of pull back in one area so I can, do better in another area. And that for me is actually energizing. It doesn't really take energy away from me, man. I actually feel more energy when I'm creating content. I never really knew that I had that, inside me. I was pretty much just a plain trader for, I guess, all my adult life. And it's, when you're younger, it's quite compelling when you first get that, when you first get that real idea that, hey, I can do this on my own. I don't really need to, be a part of anything else. It's, it's all good. You kind of live that out for a while, but, after a while, man, there's really some sort of missing human connection from there. And that's kind of what I was missing myself. So doing this community and kind of just doing the live streams and hanging out with everyone, that's like something that I actually need for my life, essentially, just to feel normal. So in a way, it actually helps my trading, and especially, getting on the YouTube and then bouncing ideas off of others. I learn a lot from other people. And then also when I have to explain things that I know to them, it kind of helps me gain a little bit of a deeper understanding as well. So it's actually been massively beneficial to my own trading. Probably more certainly more net benefit to the upside.
Do you feel there's any sort of social pressure on your trading style? So in other words, you sort of feel a bit of pressure because you're so public with your trades?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that error. It's kind of like you're putting your balls on the line, right? It's and it's not always gonna be perfect. I mean, as a trader, I know my trades can't be perfect, but I feel like I've kind of dealt with those demons myself. I'm probably my worst critic. So I used to be a lot more hard on myself, but then I really realized that you can't be perfect in this game, and that's actually what led me to my first big blowout. In trading. And so now it's like, yeah, the world gets to see and everything. And but that's okay, because, if I just accept myself, that's really what matters most. At the end of the day, I just care about my P&L. I could go back to just, not doing YouTube at all and be completely fine. And that's kind of where that thought process comes from. Not that I really want to do that, but at the same point in time, it's kind of nice to, it's like a soothing thing to kind of think about. It's, you don't want to be reliant on any one thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, okay, before we go too far into accounts blowing up and things like that, let's try and keep this a positive conversation for now. You just gave me goosebumps. Okay, so obviously you need no introduction to me, as you said, but for the sake of the podcast and just in terms of trading, could you just give us a summary of how you got involved in trading and the usual background, which I know. If you could just give us that, where you started, how you started, and what led you to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Eric Krown. I've been trading for professionally about 10 years now, but throughout my life, I guess you could say about 20 years, maybe double that. My father was a trader on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange, so I used to go down and clerk for him every summer, ever since I was like 10 or 11. And from there, I met a lot of people, really kind of fell in love with the business in general. One of my big fears as a kid growing up was, I'd have to put on like a suit and tie and, act like, I don't know, just some that I don't, that I don't really understand, I suppose. And to go down to the floor there and just see everyone having fun and joking around with each other, playing pranks and stuff, really, had a lasting impact on me, because it, kind of showed me that you didn't really have to do that. And then also these guys were, they were legitimately enjoying what they were doing. Sure, you hear about all of the stories like Wolf of Wall Street and stuff, but the wolf himself will tell you that none of the successful guys were like doing that kind of shit like every damn night, all the time. I mean, that's, everyone knows that. Most of the guys who are like really, really, in a destructive way, partying hard, they blew themselves out. But I just kind of saw it as like a really positive environment, with people having fun, and and if you really work hard at it, you can make money. I met a lot of people who, never went to college, never, basically dropped out of high school. They just became traders, and they were, and they were doing damn well. But they would always tell me, hey man, if you want to do this, you just put in the work, but you can do it. And that always left a lasting impact on me. Because I went off to college a little bit later, University of Oregon, and actually ended up graduating with a couple degrees in business and economics, and then even got through about half a pre-med before I realized, I didn't really want to do any of that, man. It's kind of more of a waste of time. Socially, it was good to get away from your parents for the first time and experience that. But as far as like college education goes, right. As far as college education goes, do I use? I mean, shit, man. I'm a trader, and I'm an options trader first and foremost. Do I use calculus? No, the computer will do it for you. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I know calculus, but do I need to know any of that really to find my way around an option exchange? Yeah. Absolutely not, man. There's plenty of people, right? And there's plenty of people who don't know a goddamn thing about calculus trading and making shit tons of money with options. So when it came down to it, I left college, and I basically just harassed one of my family friends that I met through my father, who is now he was retired market maker on the floor of New York Stock Exchange Arca, who had transferred into actually creating the algos that do market making for you. So I harassed him, and he eventually kind of took me under his wing, taught me how to use his system, and then taught me how to trade as well. And from there, I kind of got pawned off into my next mentor, who had been doing this for a very long time, about 35 years at the time. By the time that he retired, he's 40 plus years. Yeah, so super impressive, and really, really lucky just to get in with him. And he took me under his wing, and he actually allowed me to trade. And so that gave me that first initial experience. So, the first like year and a half, you're just kind of spinning your wheels. I mean, shit, man, I didn't even put in a real trade until like 4 to 6 months in. It was all testnet for me. Yeah, it was all testnet, and it really took me a long time to learn it. In fact, I had a really difficult time at the beginning. I was also trying to learn options and just trading in general at the same fucking time, which is probably not the best way to be doing it. But,
it must have been quite intense.
Yeah, it was super intense, man. And I was a kid at the time, man. I was in my early 20s, and it's all these grown men who are looking at me like a fucking moron, basically. after kind of proving yourself, they accept you, and you can't blame them. Like you're 20 years old, they're fucking 40 or 50. It's like, of course, man. They're like, who the hell is this kid?
But I mean, going through all of that, at what point did you actually realize that you want to do this? I can do this. I'm going to.
Yeah, about 6 months in, I started to feel like actually, like I could see the tunnel that you can go through and actually make this as a living. When I first started, it was like, what the fuck is a call on input? Like, what are these things doing here? And then it took a while just to get through that, and then actually learn a little bit of trading. And then, I did my first one lot trade and I made $5, and I'm like, okay, all right, it can be done.
So you could boil it down to your first $5.
Yeah.
The catalyst.
Yeah, everyone kind of gets a free first trade too, especially if you're on the floor. Usually someone will come and help you out, just give you like a little, just give you like a 5-cent trade, something like that.
Nice. And I mean, that's when you were working for your second mentor, and I presume you were working for their profit, and you were an employee, and eventually you went on your own. How did you transition? I mean, how did you fund your first account? Did you sort of self-fund it? Did you go to friends and family?
Yeah, so my first account was funded with what I was getting paid from my first, after my first mentor. At first, I was essentially paying him, doing work for him, and not getting paid. Then, after about a year, he started to pay me, and I think I think that he did actually a really good thing by doing that. With regards to how I funded my first account, basically just off that money. He'd also kind of like if we had like a good month, he'd share revenue as well. So. It allowed me to kind of build up a base, probably just enough to do a little bit of trading on my own, especially with the firm that I was trading with, the prop shop, because you can't truly be independent anymore. You have to be with the prop shop to kind of handle all of your legal dues and stuff like that. There's a lot of rules in America, especially after 2008 crash, that kind of
lots of red
some
tape.
Are good, obviously, right? But some kind of do a little bit of a damper on a business. And so you have to kind of join a prop shop in order to have a compliance officer to handle all that. So that's a full-time job. So I trade some of their book and then trade my own. And that's kind of how I started. So I was doing that for a while. And at that point, I'd been trading for probably like 2 or 3 years. And I was feeling, I knew I could do it. I had some pretty damn good results. I'd tutelage for some of the best traders in literally the world. So I was feeling pretty damn confident, and keep in mind, I'm still relatively young at this time. I'm probably like maybe, 23, 24. And, and at that age, you kind of think you're invincible, right? So
absolutely,
I would, right. You're like, this can never go wrong. What, I'm damn super.
I cringe when I think back to when I was 23, what I used to think.
Exactly.
I'm surprised I'm still alive, honestly.
It's a different person, man. It really is, So, so I'm a kid learning, basically still learning to trade, making a decent amount of money, and doing my own thing. And I'm feeling quite confident off that. But to my own demise, it kind of led me to my first major realization with trading that you can be wrong, and you will be wrong. And if that's possible, you better find out a way to fully take care of all your risk management, because you can have the best technical analysis in the world. It doesn't matter. There's going to be trades that just don't go your way. There's randomness that happens, and so to protect against
inexplicable. That can just be completely inexplicable. Yeah.
Oh, 100%, man. And if you live long enough in any market, you're going to see stuff that you just didn't think was possible. There's stuff that's technically not supposed to happen that will happen, and you got it. You're going to have to prepare for those situations. No one's going to come and save you. And that's really the big realization that I came to with trading, is that you have to take full responsibility for the whole game. Otherwise, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, but was that when you first blew up an account?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Because, what I was thinking there is that I was basically trying to short a straight up market. And I was like, well, my technical analysis is good. We see everything coming down here. We should be losing momentum. We should be coming down now. And then that would go just months. Yeah. And I would just keep on holding on to these positions, which were just losing. They were just dumb losing positions. Was I technically right in my analysis? Perhaps yes. I certainly had a good like plan going in, but I had no plan going out, which is the more important plan. So when, at the time when my trade should have been telling me that, this trade is not going to work out. This isn't, if you hold on to this, it's just going to get worse, really. That point in time, I didn't even consider that. It's just like, I'm going to be right. If I hold on to this long enough, I know that I'm going to be in the money. So no problem there. Well, that didn't go for pretty damn well. And actually, because the market is so generous in the way that it rewards itself, it took about it'll essentially take every last little dime that you are comfortable with allowing it to take. And for me at that age was pretty much everything, man. So I pretty much went broke. Yeah. About, a couple years in. And it was a really devastating time, man, because, I basically built up an identity around being, a trader and being, in the way that I can be autonomous. And that was pretty much taken away from me by myself. At the end of the day, it was my responsibility. So that was quite devastating. It really took a long time to kind of, pick up the pieces. Just kind of months of thinking about things, but that's really what I came to, in the sense that, you really have to almost go through a pretty traumatic, whatever a very traumatic emotional experience is for you, whatever it needs to be, you will go through that in order to learn the lessons that are required to trade. I mean, that kind of goes for any real skill, I suppose. Everyone's going to go through like some sort of similar process, but for trading, I think a lot of people can probably relate to that as, that first major blow is the big teacher, and it kind of reveals to you where your own inefficiencies lie, not just as a trader, but also kind of as a human, right? So in my case, I was just thinking that I was too smart for the market. It's like this can't go wrong. I've had 2 years of success now. I'm invincible. It ain't gonna happen. But no, man, that certainly can happen. So once you get that big emotional hurt, that opens you up to actually changing. It takes some time, and it took a lot of concerted effort as well. But coming to that realization, at the time, that was the most devastating event in my life. But looking back on it, it's also now perhaps one of the better things that's ever happened to me, maybe the best thing that's ever happened to me, because that allowed me to learn the lesson that now I feel like has made me a lot better of a trader. And perhaps there's probably more lessons to learn along the way. But for now, I'm quite happy with where things have come. It was just a little bit of time after that where, after I picked up the pieces and kind of showed myself that, okay, this can be done, that can be done, that you can be successful. Now, what's the missing piece? You got to have risk management. So that kind of led me to construct rules for myself that, are just non-negotiable. You can't let them go. And I told myself, well, if I can trade with this, it should be able to be done. So I'm going to give it one more go. At that point in time, man, at that point in time, man, I was still, again, I'm a young kid at this time, and I do something that I'm not necessarily sure I'd suggest other people do, but I basically applied for every credit card that I could get my hands on, maxed them all out. Yeah, this is the mind of a maniac. Maxed them all out. Then applied for a couple loans, and actually even took out a small loan from my father as well, who at the time was not really in a position to give me any money. It's about $5,000. Not too much, but certainly did help at the time. And and then from there, right. And then from there, I go back to the trading floor essentially and trade my way back up. It took a while to really get going, but those lessons that I learned were the ones that allowed me to, come back and essentially be, successful, I suppose, with it, as much as I can say right now. And
would you say,
it's kind of nice because,
sorry to interrupt you, man, but just before I lose the thought on that, would you say, you made this set of rules that you applied, for example, one of them was certain risk management principles, and obviously other things would be your edge, your strat. So would you say you were consciously having to do it, or to be able to enforce it in your mind so that it became a subconscious thing? And if 100%.
100%.
Yeah, you actually literally had to say to yourself, okay, if this happens, I need to do this. And if that happens, I need to do that. It was a concerted effort.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it was something that I really had to focus on for a while. The process of learning goes from like unconscious incompetence, then conscious incompetence, then conscious competence, and then unconscious competence. And I was basically stuck at the first level when I first started. And to learn those lessons, you have to kind of go into it with a conscious understanding that you're incompetent so that you can become now competent. So going through the, so the next like 6 months, or sorry, that first 6 months after coming back, every trade, man, every damn trade, I would go through and I'd go through all my risk management parameters, you know, why I'm taking the trade, what am I looking for? What am I looking for to get out, more importantly? And then I write down my thoughts while I was in the trade itself. And I felt like that was extremely helpful for me, because I also noticed a lot of things with my own, I noticed a lot of patterns with my own thinking, and the kind of the thought loops that I get into, especially as I enter a trade. And it's very bizarre to actually really document and kind of look back at with these sorts of things, because you realize that a lot of the time you feel these very intense emotions, which mean essentially nothing in the grand scheme of things, but they kind of distract you in the moment. And so I really felt that a lot. And so it didn't just help with like trading, but it also just helped with relaxing a little bit too, man. So, you know, it was a very conscious effort to do that for the first 6 months back. And then after that, you know, started to really get ingrained in, and I still, you know, I still practice it, but I suppose I don't do like a write out for every little trade that I take now. And then, you know, it comes full circle, and, you know, I was actually able to repay my father back, paid him actually double back, which was really, really nice. You know? Yeah, man, it felt really good, because, you know, I'm actually not like too close with my family, but my father's always been like supportive of me, right? And so when he gave me that money, he wasn't necessarily thrilled of what I was doing, but he was also, you know, he's also like, hey, you know, this is essentially, you know, a gift to you, you know, use it how you will. And so to be able to pay him back was actually quite nice. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that must have been super rewarding for you to be able to pay it back in full. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%, you know, and just be able to do it like the whole run of the gamut there. I mean, man, it was quite the journey, especially at the time, man.
Yeah. Do you ever find that you, over time, you start slipping back into bad habits, or are you human?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Absolutely. If I'm not like in a good, emotional cognitive state, I can certainly fall back into that. One of the big things for me is like getting enough sleep. Huge, you know, just something so simple like that. If I don't get a good night's sleep, man, I can tell you right now, I probably like double up my chance of losing money. You know, on that given day. So I just won't trade if something like that happens, man. Or like I recently moved. I didn't even trade for like a little bit of time after I moved, just because, well, you know, I'm jet lagged as fuck, and I know my mind's not working properly. And if that's not going properly, it's just very difficult to make good, sound, logical decisions, and more importantly, stick to those when you're just not in that sort of mental space. So for me, it's a really, really important thing to kind of take the whole holistic approach. You know, go on your walks, you know, do your exercises, you know, eat the right foods, or whatever that means to you, as everyone's on a different diet these days. Right. Yeah. And of course, just follow the process, you know, get some sleep. And that's also like a second evolution, you know, of the understanding that I kind of came to. It's like, you really got to take care of yourself first and foremost. Kind of going back to our earlier conversation, I don't know there were no traders on the floor who were doing like what the Wolf of Wall Street suggests that this business was. No one.
Well, they didn't last, did they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of those guys blew out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and there's definitely people having fun going on, no doubt about that. But to the extent that movie makes it sound like, I don't know about that.
Damn, you know, I was in it for that, man. Oh man, I'm gonna have to throw the towel in.
Man, yeah, you might be about 2 decades late, my friend, but but you can always live vicariously through the movie.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, well, there's a lot to take in there, but let me stick to some of the questions I've jotted down here for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I understand that risk management is plays a big part in your trading strategy and in your style and how you do things, and obviously I've heard that from a lot of successful traders too. So you know, there's a common thread there. One of the things I was wondering is, you know, you're obviously not jotting down your trade to trades anymore, your feelings as you used to. You were doing it very consciously at the time. Now, the next thing that comes to mind is in terms of measuring your success over time. do you sort of journal for example, like month on month, up month, down month, up year, down year? I presume, I mean, watching your trades anyway, you don't really have many down days, let alone weeks or months. But, some people say, okay, look, I'm making X% per year. I'm not asking you, by the way, the percentage. I'm saying, do you actually analyze or keep a record of that type of gain or return? And if you do, how do you measure it? Do you have some sort of way of journaling or measuring it? Or do you just go and make money?
Right. Yeah. So that's also another big realization that I came to. I spent a lot of time living in, maybe I guess they might be considered like second world countries, kind of on low budgets. And those experiences kind of taught me that I don't really actually need all that much money to live, just even like a decent life. So when I went through those, it kind of ingrained that inside me. Even though right now, I think I'm pretty damn happy with where I am. I could still very easily do with less. And so when I had those experiences, it made me realize that, hey, you could live off, $2,000 a month. That's really kind of brings down it brings down a lot of the pressures, right? Exactly. Yeah. Of having to perform, if I think that I have to make $10,000 a month or $100,000 a month, that's a little bit more more daunting of a task. But just saying $2,000 a month, I mean, that's a week's worth of work, really. So just realizing that, you don't need all that much to kind of do what you want to do and be happy, I suppose, or just feel, sufficient, then, I guess I just don't really have the need to track it. Like, make this amount of money. I just kind of trust in the process that it's going to, produce money. I mean, that's what it's been doing for the past decade or so. And I'd rather
what I gather from that though is that you don't want to have any pressure when you're trading, and not any pressure. I don't want to say
exactly.
That. You want to be comfortable. You don't want to be trading knowing that you have to make X amount by tomorrow or else.
100%. And
decision making.
Right. And I'll explain it a little bit more as you kind of made me realize where I'm going to with that. And what it comes down to is I don't want to put that pressure on myself because the market, again, is random in a way. We can't demand a certain amount like per day because these things need to be judged, maybe on like a quarterly basis, perhaps, or like a half year basis. And that's going to allow these statistics, the actual, N equals whatever, to kind of align over time. And so that can actually be working for you. But when you are on some sort of a schedule, whether it be like weekly, sometimes even monthly, you can certainly have bad months and bad days here and there. I've certainly had my fair share. So what I would say about that, man, is when I kind of adopt that sort of mentality, it gets me out of feeling like there's a need which could perhaps force me into a trade that I probably wouldn't have taken. Maybe it's a little bit, outside my parameters, but I made an exception on this one. I just don't want to do that because I know that every time that you do that, you actually just slowly but surely take away from that little statistical edge that you do have. And so each time that you do that over time, you're actually giving up more money. So, coming to that realization and then just realizing you're more than likely going to be fine. Just follow the process. That's the big underlying feature for me, rather than actually focusing on a direct amount of money to make. I think that that's been a lot more helpful in just my own, and kind of like managing my own mentality.
What would you say are the most common mistakes that new traders make?
Yeah. I'd say probably the biggest mistake that I see most people make after like they've gotten a little bit of knowledge is they're trying to do too much, or they think they always need to be in a trade. That's a big one that I really see is like people who they've just learned a little bit of technical analysis. They know just enough to be deadly. They can identify trades here and there, but they now think that they have to always be doing something. And so these people will, typically ask me like, what do you think about the 5-minute chart? It's like, I think that you should delete it from your trading view and look at something higher, man. You can make life so much easier for yourself, really. So yeah, man, trading is very interesting because it's the only profession where you have to know when not to do something. Maybe it's not the only one, but you get my point, right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to not do anything. It's extremely difficult to not do anything. And then also on top of it, this is a profession where sometimes the best thing to do is to do nothing. That is doing something, that is taking action. Because remember, when you're a trader, you're literally responsible for every last little thing. So not taking action is taking action, just in a in kind of a neutral direction. So not having a position is actually a position, and sometimes it is the best position. So I think a lot of people kind of get stuck in feeling like they always need to do something. I think it's kind of like that like internal pinging that we have with ourselves, telling us that we always have to, if we're not doing something, like we're lazy. I know, like in the Western world, we're kind of conditioned that way, especially through school. But you'll notice that most academic people, at least the ones that I've met, like the super academic people, they can make good traders, but I don't think that they as readily have picked it up as some people that I've found who just literally started right after maybe they even dropped out of high school, and they've just been doing it for a long time. Because I think those more academic people are looking for like the answer, rather than just understanding that this is you're going to incorporate some wins and losses. You can't just have you can't just get an A on the test. By doing all the homework, that the grade can kind of
they just want to be
sometimes.
right. They just want to prove that they're right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that lesson that I learned from my first major blowout. Really, is ego. You can't have an ego in this game. You'll notice. Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that I noticed from traders that I think know what they're talking about is they typically have some air of humility, because they've probably learned that lesson where you can have the best technical analysis. It doesn't matter. It's still a little bit of a random chance in some way. So if you think you're good for it, it's just like you're going to be at the whim of the statistics each and every day. There's going to be some good days, there's going to be some bad days. I mean, one of my poker friends explained it to me actually, in I think a much better way. He was essentially telling me that, hey man, when you're playing poker, it's even more obviously a game of statistics, right? You can play the best hand, you can play all this kind of stuff, but there's going to be, just an odd percentage over time of where you're going to be right and where you're going to be wrong, just by the nature of the way that cards work. And he's like, if you base your personal being or your personal happiness based off of one game, well, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because one game isn't representative of the whole. And if you kind of let that sort of bad mentality kick in, maybe you feel bad after losing a game, or maybe you feel good after winning a game, and that kind of influences your next behaviors, which change you away from your from your ultimate plan. I mean, that just it's just convolutes the fact, just convolutes the whole equation, and kind of takes away your own edge.
That frames it perfectly. And I have had a lot of people say that poker players make good traders. So I think it's obviously the statistical edge and things like that gives them the ability to sort of analyze the process a bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, there's a lot of people sort of coming into the space, and inevitably everybody is looking at price, especially with Bitcoin and all the different altcoins and everything. Do you find that a lot of, obviously with your crypto cave, do you find that a lot of people are coming in that just really shouldn't even start trading, or can anybody trade if they just have the right tools and strategies?
Yeah. I mean, as long as you're, as long as you're coming from like a base of a person, right? It's like you're mentally all there. You're not, you're not in disability, have any sort of disabilities or anything like that. Then yeah, I don't see why anyone can't do it. Like I said, when I first started, man, it's pretty damn rough. Like it was not easy for me when I first started. And I've seen a lot of people who kind of start, and it's a little bit rough patch. I mean, most people I've seen have had, significant rough patches. In fact, all the best traders that I've met, they all have a story, where they have, blown an account, sometimes even multiple times. My mentor himself, he lost $1 million in a day, like 2 times. And he's independent, so ouch. That's it's not like a corporation or anything like that.
So almost in a way, there's those who've blown up an account or had a very bad day, and those that are still going to experience that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in some ways it's kind of needed, man, to kind of get that emotional priming, or just open up your emotions to changing,
to shake you up.
But for some people, but for people in general, can you learn how to trade? Yeah, absolutely, man. I think most people could probably do it a lot faster than me. It's just about having the right know-how, I would say. Having the right know-how. After that, it's just the iterations over time that are going to make you good. There's been a lot of studies been done on that. Like if you get 10,000 hours of practice on a certain skill, you're going to be in the master or in the mastery category for that. I think I've seen that proven to be true in my life, where pretty much all the best traders that I've met have been doing it, around that time. And they usually say around, 3 to 4 years, which is about where you'd be if you're doing it, every day, all day, is when they started to really get damn good. So that's what I'd say about that, man. Anyone can learn how to do it. It's just a time process, really, after you get the right information. But of course, if you have the wrong information, well, yeah, then you're kind of fucked. I mean, that's probably the most important part.
It's a non-starter. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, some people might just be spinning their wheels, practicing the wrong thing. That's a whole different conversation. But hey, if you have the right, if you have the right information, absolutely 100%. I just don't see why you couldn't, because I've seen plenty of people from all walks of life, man. I'm talking like literally, like dropped out of high school, dropped out of middle school, never did anything else but just focus their damn life on trading. I'm also talking about, MIT graduates, Stanford graduates, they all kind of come to the floor, and it's like a base of reality where everyone's kind of the same. You're only judged on your trades, and
get humbled
that way. Yeah. You can get humbled real fast, but you also realize that, you're, as a human being, you are no more likely or no less likely to experience success as the next guy to you if you put in the same amount of work, put in the same amount of time, and put in the same amount of effort. That's really the great equalizer there. So I'd say, yeah, man, with a couple stipulations, you got to put in the time and effort. But yeah, anyone could do it. Absolutely, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it's encouraging to hear. And obviously, having been trading for a while now, it's good to have that type of mindset where anybody can do it, as long as you put in the work and you consciously follow your own rules. And I think that everybody trades differently. Everybody's got their own style. So the way you teach anyway in the program, you offer up the tools, but it's up to the trader to see what works best for them, how they react in certain conditions. And I think it's different for everybody, I presume. Moving on, your favorite topic, I think, market manipulation.
Damn manipulators.
Those damn market makers.
Evil beings. Yes. Exactly.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, an order is an order, as you always say, as long as it's gone through the ticker, through the feed. Is it something that you think about on a day-to-day basis? I mean, you actually trade for a living, not just sort of posting these meme charts all over the place, and you actually verify your trades. Is it something you as a professional trader in the crypto space, trading Bitcoin, think about when you're entering and exiting your trades, that there's this big scary market manipulation taking place?
No, you already know the answer to that, but of course not, man. It's damn market manipulators. Yeah. It's one of those things, man, where if we're talking specifically about cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and the whole ecosystem, there's no such thing as manipulation in this, because it's the wild, wild west. There's no oversight government that's going to be like, hey, we've deemed what you're doing manipulation. You can't do that anymore. That just quite literally doesn't exist, because it's not defined. In traditional markets, there is such thing as manipulation, but that's something that's a little bit more nefarious, in the sense that, like, people could be, not reporting the right, I don't know, maybe like earnings report or whatever.
Insider trading.
That's that's it. Insider trading, yes. Very, very illegal. Definitely happens. Definitely happens all the time. It's one of those things. It's pretty much impossible to prove. And I've certainly seen some questionable activity. Anyways, when it comes down to it, that's what I'd have to say about that, man. That's what I have to say about that is manipulation. It's, in traditional markets, there is technically, but it's not in the way that I think most people blame it. Most people use the term manipulation as like a means to kind of pass off responsibility to whatever is not them. You could say these damn market makers manipulated the price action, and it's like, okay, well, what the hell does, what? I mean, I can tell you that that's just not true from being a former market maker. Like, market makers don't care about direction to begin with.
I mean, market makers, what are you doing? You're just creating liquidity. You're reducing the spread. You're working on fine edge arbitrage.
Right. The game that market makers are playing is a game of arbitrage in some base formats. So for myself, when I was doing it, we were doing the reversal conversion markets. So we literally, our whole strategy was to not care about direction at all. So when people kind of blame it on that, I think it's more of like I don't want to take responsibility for this.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not my fault, even though I'm the one who loses money. It's one of those things, kind of like a cop out. We're taught to not feel wrong. Well, if you're wrong on a trade, then it's better to just blame it on someone else than yourself. But at the end of the day, it's still your P&L. So, market manipulation, we're technically all market manipulators just by the definition of it. If like in the way that I think most people mean it, in the sense that whenever you put an order in the order book, you're influencing other people's decisions. Absolutely. It's just, you might not see it like that because you might be smaller than the next guy, but there's certainly some guy who's smaller than you who's looking at your order and saying, well, what the fuck, man, that's a 10 lot right there. Jesus Christ. Something like that. It's all a game of perspective. But as far as like legitimate, real manipulation that is defined legally and all that stuff in cryptocurrency, it doesn't really exist, man. As far as I know, we're still kind of figuring this whole game out. It seems like things are moving into a more traditional venue. So at some point we probably will have legitimate definitions of manipulation. And then it'll probably be the same as like traditional markets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if thinking about the traditional markets, if you think about it back in the day when computer algorithms first started being used in trading bots and things like that, I'm pretty sure some of the old school traders at the time would have been blaming that as market manipulation or using it as a crutch.
Oh, and you're
using it as
so right,
sort of
Wes. You're so right. One of the crazy things, man, is I used to go, like I was telling you, I used to go down to the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange with my father when I was a kid, and and at that time computers were not like really big. It was still kind of in the early days. Most people didn't have them, and just by the time that I came back after college, most people had left, and they were kind of blaming they were blaming it on the technology change. It's like, how do I use this damn computer? Like, what's this? Because everyone used to do it with paper before, man. I mean, just imagine that. You're trying to get filled on a trade, and you don't have a computer. Don't do it like that. You call up your broker, and you say, hey, broker, can you buy me in right on over here? And then he puts down the phone and says, I'll try. and you don't know if you got filled. Like, you don't know if you got filled until you call him back or anything like that. I mean, that's, it's a whole different game. So yeah, man, things are changing. And that's also another big thing that that I learned down there is that a lot of the old timers, they didn't want to accept that change. And the ones who didn't accept the change, they blew themselves out, man, or they just left. But most of them, they just didn't want to deal with it. There was like, this is manipulation. This is new technology. What is this shit? I want to go back to the old way of doing it. I
remember reading the Market Wizards trading book, and one of the things they were saying was what was it, 1987 or 1988, the big crash, the stock market crash. And the government blamed it on trading bots. That they just started with the algorithms and everything. So the guy said, well, you were all okay with the trading bots when the market was going up to all-time highs, but as soon as everything crashed, then you used it as a scapegoat.
Right. 100%. It's the same thing for Bitcoin during 2017. It's like everyone's fine with it on the way up to 20,000. Not so much after though, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And then the market manipulators are bad, we don't like them anymore. It's okay if they're manipulating it up, but when they manipulate it down, it's not good.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
All right, man. Coming to the last bit of the podcast, getting more specific now, are we actually in a bull market right now in Bitcoin? Okay,
so a bull market, I believe that we've seen the lows. I believe that we are generally uptrending. Are we in a bull market macro? Yeah, I would say so. It's just a general up market right here. I don't really see any real reason to be like bearish on Bitcoin, expecting like a long-term downtrend. As long as Bitcoin's above about 7,500 to 8,000 region, I don't even think that's in the vocabulary. If we started to break a region like that, anywhere below 8,000, things start to get a little bit more hairy. But for right now, I mean, Bitcoin plays in very big numbers. It's a highly volatile asset. So when it goes through these consolidation periods, I mean, it's completely reasonable to think that 14,000 to 9,000 actually it's actually quite a reasonable range. even though it sounds at the outset absolutely crazy to probably most people, which I don't disagree with. This is just the way that Bitcoin kind of plays it. So I'd say general bullish structure is still intact as long as we remain above about 7,500. All higher time frames still basically uptrending. So I don't really see any real reason to say not. I can only offer up points of contingency where I kind of change my mind on that. But for now, man, you play your edge and the trend on all time frames basically to the upside for now.
In terms of consolidation, I mean, between, let's say, 14,000 and where we are now, about, say, 9,000, call it 10,000. I mean, that's a $4,000 range. And I know you said the ranges are big, but can you imagine that we were down at 3,200 and now our range that we're bouncing up and down, over the last, 2 months has been larger than where we were sitting for a couple of months near the lows.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that also shows just how short-term memory we have, man. I mean, this should be welcomed right here compared to where it was 5-6 months ago. I mean, if you're a trader, you probably shouldn't care all that much, but for the investors in the world, this is pretty damn good right here, I would say.
Well, I'd say if you are a trader, I think you'd be quite happy right now. I mean, the ranges are awesome.
The ranges are bigger. True. Yeah, the ranges are bigger. I would say though that during like kind of the winter months, it was really good for options trading for myself. But yeah, right now I would say it's easier on the whole. But you got to be able to make money in all dynamic environments. This one right here, I'd figure for most people, this is going to be, it's probably going to be a little bit of a nicer, more generous market, really. Yeah.
Personally, I actually found it easier to be honest. I actually found it easier to trade during the bear market above 6K. And only recently now have I found it not easy. It's never easy, is it? But only since we've sort of based above 9,000, if I could put it that way.
Yeah.
Since about 9,000 up and this whole consolidation, I've been at home again. And I was at home above 6K. And the drop down to 3K, that was lovely. And then you said, don't overtrade. And I absolutely did not listen to that. And I gave about 20-30%.
Gotta go through it first, man. That's the thing.
Exactly. And I would say that was my sort of come to Jesus moment, if I could put it that way.
There you go.
Bouncing from the 3K all the way back up to like nearly 5K or whatever it was at the time. But then working it all back and being square again, that was great. So getting my profit that I had taken from the 6K down to 3K was intact. But I found it very difficult, that latter part just before we broke the 200 EMA on the weekly upwards.
Right.
That little part there frustrated the heck out of me and I got chopped to pieces there.
Yeah, it was difficult, man. It was difficult. I mean, that's when the market turns, right? That's like literally the time. But you adopted that you adopted that view rather quickly right after that, which is the important part. Yes. You're technically supposed to be bearish as a trader. You're technically supposed to be bearish as we were approaching that region. Perhaps just managing risk and perhaps even just not entering trades would have been the actual go there.
That would have been the answer. Yeah, not entering trades. Right. But I mean, technically speaking, like you said, I mean, it was the right thing to remain sort of on the bearish side until we broke through that through that resistance. I sat out of trades for quite a lot of the way up. It's unfortunate, but I just wasn't comfortable. And as you say, if you're not comfortable, then to not trade is a trade too. But since we've been above the sort of 9K area, I've found my comfort zone. And well, I presume we're going to break out of the range at some stage. I'm just not sure which way we're going yet.
A few more weeks, maybe. I think a couple more weeks, we probably get this baby moving again.
Yeah, possibly. And have you found on your options trading that the liquidity's improved and you've got other people trading with you now, not just market makers, in terms of the Bitcoin on Deribit?
Yeah, 100%, man. It's definitely improved. When I first started using it I think about a year ago, last summer, you could barely get filled on maybe like 20 to 50 contracts. Now you can get filled on like 500 contracts. Really, it's
okay. So
it's certainly improved a lot. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, man. Look, I know what books you'd recommend out there. There'd be Reminiscences of a Stock Operator and and the market wizards and the Douglas, I can't remember the name of the other one, but trading in the zone. Could you just tell us a little bit about your courses for the listeners? Who's it for? What's it about?
Yeah, of course. My technical analysis programs. I've one for technical analysis, which doesn't just talk about technical analysis, but also, of course, risk management, position management, market dynamics, and then access to a couple of proprietary indicators. And I have my own program for options as well, which is kind of near and dear to my own heart. And both those programs they're 35-hour plus long programs. They are a high monetary investment. And realistically, for most people, they're probably not going to be probably not too needed. I mean, if you're not looking to do this in a more serious manner, like as a profession, they're probably not going to really be for you. I mean, it's a huge time investment, huge financial commitment, and you have to put in the hours really to make use of it anyways. Just like anything, what you put in is what you get out. I'm not here to tell you that it's a magic pill, but if you are going to put in the time and effort, as we spoke about before, having just the right know-how to begin with, that's kind of what that program is designed for. So if you are interested in that, definitely check it out. But for most people, you could probably just get away with using my free content, especially on my YouTube channel. I have a couple of playlists, both for technical analysis and options, which probably going to get most people where they want to be. Of course, I also have my proprietary indicators as well, but a little bit more instant gratification. So I like to talk about them a little bit less, as you still need to know risk management, of course, in order to make use of just about anything. But yeah, man, I'd say definitely consider it if that does sound like you, but definitely do not consider it if there's any sort of questions in your mind. That's probably not the best sign.
Well, look, speaking for myself, having done all the courses and with the indicators and everything, I can definitely say they're all amazing. And I've learned a heck of a lot via it, but not just in terms of actual strategies in that, but actually how to apply them, risk management and things like that. And what I can definitely say is that I would recommend that someone does at least the technical analysis TA course before thinking about the magic pill indicators and things like that. It certainly does. It does certainly require some sort of background knowledge and groundwork before getting that magic pill. All right. Good, man. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for taking the time to come speak to me today. Very insightful, balanced, as usual. I think that's why we really liked you. That's why you're blowing up on YouTube and everywhere else. It's not very difficult to see why you're so successful at whatever you apply your mind to. And yeah, man. So thanks so much.
Hey, my pleasure, man. It was an absolute pleasure to actually speak with you, Wes, man. I feel like it's been a long time coming, man. Really appreciate that. Yeah. And anytime, man, really, it's been an absolute blast, man. So thank you.
All right, man. Okay. Thanks, eh?
Oh, no, it's not.